So you missed the tax deadline. Now what? Roshini, Rajkumar with you. I wanted you to get a little bit of quick tax advice, whether you missed it or not, but especially if you missed it. And joining us to help you is Chris Whittick. He is a CPA with the firm of Boyum and Berenshire. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing great. Okay, so do you have any idea of how many Americans will have actually missed the tax deadline, actually did miss it?
Well, I would say most people do file on time, and a number of other people file extensions, which means they haven't necessarily missed the deadline. They've just extended it to be October 15th. I think only a few people truly miss the deadline without an extension.
Let's start with them. What happens to them?
Well, anyone who filed an extension, they get until October 15th. But those extensions are not an extension of time to pay your tax liability. It's only an extension of time to file your return. So when you do file your return, if there's a balance due, and let's say you're filing in May, the balance due, there's going to be a penalty for those folks who didn't pay it in April. And there's an additional penalty if you didn't file an extension. So there's two separate penalties.
So Is this like a percentage? Is it a daily charge?
It is. It's a percentage of the amount that you owe. The late payment penalty is 0.5% per month, but the late filing penalty is 5% per month. So that one is much higher if for some reason you failed to file an extension.
Okay. But the bottom line is get this done.
Yeah, you should get it done, especially if you owe money.
Okay.
If you paid with your extension in April, you do have until October 15th now to file your return. And as long as you get it filed by then, there will be no additional penalties.
Okay. All right. So it's not the end of the world. I mean, it happens, right?
It does.
But it isn't something you want to let go for many years, because we do hear stories, Chris, of people who, owe back taxes for years and years.
Yes, and that's when you can get into a bit of a pickle with the IRS.
Yeah, and even though they're in their own pickle of late, we don't want to be in our pickles, right?
Indeed, we don't want to have a situation with them.
Okay.
If we can avoid it.
All right. Well, I want to talk with you about a couple other things then. So those are the people who haven't filed. But is there anything that taxpayers can do now to put themselves in the best position to file on time and take advantage of new laws or things like that for next year?
Well, planning is always a good idea. And planning definitely starts once you've filed your 2014 return. Planning for 15 should be starting immediately. There's quarterly payments, estimated tax payments that are due. The first ones were due in April. The second ones are due in June. So that's definitely a good time to reassess your tax situation, sit down with a CPA and sort of go through what is changing from the prior year to this year. Oftentimes those changes are big life events, like if you get married and now your joint income has changed, or if you have children, how are those children going to affect your tax return? Or if you get a new job or a raise at work, what are you going to do with that extra money? Are you going to save it for retirement? Or how is that going to affect your tax situation?
Yeah, so it's good. Planning is always a good idea, right? But
key.
Life does get in the way, Chris, with planning sometimes.
It does. We always recommend our clients to do the best that they can. I know it's not always a fun topic for people to be thinking about a couple of times a year is your tax situation, but a little bit of good planning can go a long way to saving yourself tax liability, but also just saving yourself the hassle of doing it all at once in the spring.
Chris Whittick is on the Renters Warehouse Newsmaker hotline. He is a CPA with Boyum and Berenshire. He's taking your questions. Text us 81807 if you have any tax questions for him, or give us a quick call. We might be able to get it in, 651-989-9226. Chris, I want to ask you a couple questions related to marriage and divorce. So in the 1 o'clock hour, I talked to Representative John Lesh and mediator Dan Simon about this private cooperative divorce law that Representative is co-sponsoring. It's going to be a while, if that even passes for it to happen. One texter, actually, who we didn't get to earlier, said, Roshini and John, my ex and I did our own divorce. We were on the amicable basis. I'm a lawyer and did all the legal work. The Board of Professional Responsibility said that was okay. But of course, there was no actual hired attorney in that case. So that person had a good outcome. But sometimes you may not have that good of an outcome. Or even if you do, there are tax consequences to divorce, right?
Certainly. And when there's children involved, there's additional tax implications. I mean, initially there's just a split up of the assets and the alimony that is paid back and forth. Determining how much that is important because there's a difference between alimony and child support. The alimony would be taxable income to the person receiving it and a tax deduction to the person paying it, but the child support is neither income nor a deduction. And then sort of splitting up those dependency exemptions for the children can become an important tax planning opportunity for the people getting divorced.
Okay. We don't have a lot of time left with you, but I really want to touch on this so you can give us any quick advice possible. Tax identity theft. This sounds very scary, John. I mean, Chris, sorry.
It is scary, and certainly it started to come up in the past couple of years. There was a bunch of it sort of found its way up to Minnesota last year, including myself. My tax identity was stolen.
Wow.
And this year we've seen even a lot more of it with our clients, and it's not necessarily that the taxpayer's done anything wrong or that their information is out there, but the tax thieves are very good, and the IRS, to their credit, has gotten a little bit better this year.
How can we protect ourselves, though, bottom line?
Just taking the normal steps to protect, just like you do with your credit card information, and keeping tabs on who has your Social Security number and not spreading that around. But to some extent, you can't be 100% safe. But the IRS has procedures in place to deal with this when it happens. They've gotten better beforehand this year. And so what normally happens is you go to file your tax return and your e-file is rejected. And the IRS tells you somebody else has already filed with your Social Security number. And so then you need to file a paper return. And attached to that paper return, there's a special form 14039, and then you attach some documentation like a copy of your driver's license or your passport, something to prove who you are, and then you submit it to the IRS, and you start to work through that process. I've done it myself,
right?
And last year, and it was relatively painless.
Well, that's good. Before one really quick question just came in on the text line. Is it okay to increase my tax withholdings rather than pay estimated taxes?
Definitely. That's one way you can do it. It spreads it out sort of by paycheck rather than paying it a quarterly amount. Either way is fine with the IRS.
Okay. Well, I want to spread a little love to you, Chris Whittick, for joining us on short notice this week to give our listeners some advice. You're a CPA with Boyum and Berenshire. How can people reach you?
Well, you can find me fairly easily on the internet, Chris Whittick. I'm also a ferocious blogger. I go by the Ravenous Tax Tiger.
Oh, that would be the easiest way to find you. So the Ravenous Tax Tiger, is that a .com?
No, it's we blog on the company website. It's boybarcpa.com.
boybarcpa.com. Okay, thanks so much, Chris Whittick, and good luck. Take a break. You deserve it after tax day now being done.